Hello guys! Let's talk about Lightmix, which is now available in both render engines, Corona and V-Ray. It's great that V-Ray decided to add this option as it helps with creating images a lot. Okay, so as always, I have a Corona scene with a Corona camera on the left hand side. And on the right hand side, we have a V-Ray scene with a V-Ray physical camera setup. In Corona, I added the HDRI to the environmental map slot, as I showed you in the previous lessons, and for V-Ray, I created the V-Ray Light type DOM, and I added an HDR map to it, the same as we did in the previous lesson. I also copied this HDRI map as an instance to the environmental map slot, so we can see the sky in the preview as well. Additionally, I have 3 Corona lights here. They're all instances. The same for V-Ray scene. We have 3 instances of V-Ray lights. I also added a Corona rectangle light and a cone object with the Corona light material on it. And for V-Ray, the same, a cone object with V-Ray light material applied to it, and V-Ray light as a plane. Let's start interactive rendering. Here is the result for the Corona. And here is how it looks in V-Ray. To add the Lightmix in Corona, we need to go to Render Elements and choose Lightmix. If we have the Lightmix, we can add different light select elements for different lights. So let's add an environmental light first. We need to scroll down and check the Include Environmental Light option. If you go to the Lightmix tab, you can see that we have this new light layer and rest layer automatically created. On the rest layer, we have all unassigned lights, while on the first one, we have our skylight. So you can see that on this pass, we can see only the light from the HDRI. We should change the name of it to make it easier to work with when we add more lights. And if we render it again, you can see that the name is automatically changed in the frame buffer as well. If we want to add a new light layer, we need to add another light select element and add proper lights to it. Let's name it rectangle, for instance. And let's add a Corona rectangle light. This time, we don't want to have an environment included, of course. And let's repeat the procedure. This time, we'll add sphere lights to the one layer. Here we go. And finally, let's add the cone object. So you can see that we have all of these lights on separate layers. Now on the Lightmix pass, we have all of these lights together. We cannot just highlight compress a bit. We can control the intensity and color of these lights in the Lightmix tab. By dragging and dropping the color, we can copy it from one light to another. And we can do the same with objects that have light material on it. But in Corona, we have one great option I've mentioned you before. We can set up Lightmix automatically, which can speed up the procedure quite a lot. So as everything is deleted from here, let's go to the Scene tab and in the General Settings, click Setup Lightmix. If you choose Instances Light here, it will add all instances to one light layer. And this is what we want. Just click Generate. You can see that all needed passes are added to the Render Elements tab. You can see that everything is perfectly separated. We could just change the naming. Okay, now let me show you how it works in V-Ray. So here similarly, we need to go to the Render Setup and Render Elements. This time we need to add V-Ray Lightmix. As V-Ray automatically adds lights to the Lightmix as default, we can choose how we want them to be grouped. And here we can choose how we want to do this. We can group by instance light, as in Corona, or we can choose individual lights, group lights, layers, or we can choose manual light select. We want to have the same effect as in the Corona scene, so let's choose instance lights. And let's render. You can see that we have source changed to Lightmix, and if we click on it, we can see all layers created. So we can see that all is separated as we wanted. We can also see separate passes here. Just in V-Ray, objects with V-Ray light material on it will be on the self-illumination pass. The same as in Corona, we can control intensity and color of the light in the Lightmix. We should also add an exposure layer to reduce highlight burn. So in V-Ray, you need to add layers instead of just changing values in one layer in Corona. You can see that if we have large values here, we create lots of noise. To avoid it, we should increase the intensity in the material and don't use too large values in the Lightmix. We can do the same for others. So you can see that it doesn't differ so much in both render engines. The rules are the same, just the workflow is slightly different. Okay, with all of this being said, we can go to the next lesson. See you there!